Hello users and welcome to another video, and this one is not going to be fun. Michael Brooks passed away yesterday. For those of you that don't know who he is a YouTuber, political podcaster, commentator, and author. I've got his book right here. And I would say he has probably been my favorite voice as far as left politics. Just very consistently, critical, very, very analytical, very concise, extremely well-spoken person. And so I thought I would make a video about how he affected me in my life and how he was an inspiration for this show that I do. I experienced a lot of poverty growing up, and I was always shamed by my mother. My mother always had the idea that being poor is bad, and therefore we have to keep it a secret. No one can know that we're poor. That was what I've been taught my entire life. But around 2016, Bernie Sanders' campaign kind of gave me an outlet, like somebody who was out there and saying that it's okay to be poor, and in fact, not only is it okay to be poor, but it's actually normal. It's actually that everyone else, well, not everyone, but most other people are also poor, but they've also been told to hide it. They've also been told that it's something to be ashamed of. And when I was a teenager, I fell victim to a lot of the IDW, the intellectual dark web, Sam Harris kind of fuckers. And when I first discovered the internet, I was a very sheltered kid. When I first discovered the internet, one of my big things to look into was atheism. Because my mom kept telling me that God was looking out for us. And I kept praying, but I could never feel anything improving. Everything always got worse, no matter how much I prayed. And when I was first exposed to the internet around 14, 15, I did a lot of research into the topic of atheism. And I came across a lot of characters, shall we call them, like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and all that. And I noticed, being a teenager, I just wanted to hear other people say that, yeah, being an atheist, it's cool. You're smarter than everyone else. People are just falling for a scam. And in a way that's true, but I also don't care anymore. That's something I think it's just juvenile. It's a juvenile analysis, and it doesn't accomplish anything. And I noticed when I was an adult that a lot of these people turned out to be extremely nefarious creatures. Now, it was not an instantaneous realization, but when I first kind of got into politics, I was like, okay, let me look up what some of these people I used to read when I was a teenager. Let's see what they're saying about these elections and the current topical events in 2016, 2015 as well. And a lot of the stuff I found was very questionable, but I didn't really know how nefarious it was. And over a couple years, I started getting more and heavily invested into politics, heavily invested into leftism. Around 2018, I decided that I would take politics seriously. My life had been crumbling, and I wanted to find a good outlet on YouTube to replace a lot of other YouTube outlets that I had maybe been using. The only real leftist media that I had been exposed to in any real sense, and I don't even really consider them leftist, is like the Young Turks or Kyle Kalinske. I checked out some of their videos every now and then. And around 2018, when the midterms were starting to become a big thing, Donald Trump's fascism was hitting a fever pitch. I came out as trans. I decided I did not want to be a liberal. I wanted to be as farthest left as I could possibly acquire. And in that journey, I read a lot, I looked up a lot of information, and in that search, I found the Majority Report, which I've been watching ever since. I started watching it around the summer of 2018, right around after I had been swatted. So, real life circumstances, I was starting to get a lot more depressed. I was always a big full-time streamer, air quotes on big. So I never really had that much time to research stuff, but I started to get really depressed, and I started to quit streaming. I quit making YouTube videos as a whole for a long time in this era, and one thing I discovered that helped me through my depression was the Majority Report. And as a result, I started following the Michael Brooks Show as well. I watched probably, I would like to say, every single episode of both of them from that period of August, September, all the way up until maybe a month ago. I started doing Above It All a lot more. I started having less time for watching 3-hour podcasts every day. But I always like to catch up when I can. I like to watch every single episode of these shows, specifically because they give you a very well-rounded historical knowledge and analysis of things that I had never been exposed to before. I dropped out of high school, and I never really went to college. I tried college and dropped out basically immediately. And so my worldview was, I wouldn't necessarily say selfish, but my politics were mostly formed from my lived experience. I didn't know much about history. I didn't know much about government. I didn't know much about a lot of that stuff. And over watching the Majority Report and the Michael Brooks Show, as well as other podcasts that I got into, but these were my gateways. I started to find out about all kinds of different things that made me feel again, like I said before, that it's okay to be poor. And in fact, being poor is normal. Most people are poor. It's just that we are conditioned to hide it. We are conditioned not to talk about it. And the idea that I could find an outlet that perfectly encapsulated those feelings. And another huge thing about these shows is that they were really, really funny. They were extremely funny. It was so easy to listen to them. It didn't feel like I was listening to an audiobook or watching a documentary or listening to a lecture. It felt like I was listening to smart, intelligent, and like-minded people, not only in politics, but in humor, in style, and it resonated with me. So I watched almost every single episode of the Michael Brooks Show and Majority Report since I started, because it just felt good. I remember every Tuesday, back before COVID, I would just get really high, and I would watch the Michael Brooks Show at night, and I would chat in the Discord, I'd chat in the live chat, and it was just a fun experience. The idea of mixing humor and history so seamlessly and flawlessly was something that I looked up to incredibly. And I'd been a YouTuber for a long time, but I had always been very afraid of doing a political show, because even though I was developing these extremely radical beliefs and I wanted to have an outlet to talk about them, my online presence was mostly about video games. And video games garner a lot of really terrible people. And I ended up with a lot of really terrible people in my fan base, to the point where I was kind of afraid of them. But through watching these shows that Michael Brooks hosted and that he was a part of, it motivated me to feel more confident in what I think, to instead of thinking things in the back of my head and just being a performer and just, not mixing politics and live streaming and YouTube video making, I decided, you know what? It's too important, especially with the 2020 primary happening. I decided around middle of 2019 that I wanted to do a political show. In the middle of 2019, I did another iteration, a podcast that was, it was based around mixing video games and politics. So we'd talk about video games and we'd talk about politics, and it was my first kind of outlet to talk about politics, and it felt very good. But I decided when 2020 rolled around that I wanted to, instead of just being mostly a video game content creator, I wanted to completely transition to being mostly a political content creator. And I can say that my main inspiration was Michael Brooks. Because, again, he just blended humor, like history, knowledge in such a very great way. Concise speaking, like no bullshit, like cutting straight to the point. And like I found that kind of thing phenomenal, because again, when I started studying more politics, there were, when it comes to like the political campaign of 2016, there's a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of talking like, oh, what about the money and how about this? And I lived with a family that was not in any capacity leftist. The people in my family were staunch Hillary Clinton supporters. I didn't really have an outlet to talk about that, and I just kind of gave up. Once the election rolled around, I was just like, whatever. Politics obviously is a lost cause. I'm just going to go back to playing video games. And then, in 2018, I started to get really depressed, and I was like, no one should ever suffer. The things that I was going through, I felt that nobody should go through. And just finding such a powerful voice that was able to say those same things in such a concise and clear manner, just it meant a lot to me. And so when I read this news yesterday, needless to say, it devastated me. Because, again, Michael was one of my main inspirations for making this show above it all. I wanted to make a show that, like Michael's show, mixed comedy, mixed, cutting through the bullshit. The name, Above It All, is based on cutting through the bullshit. I want to be a real person in politics. I don't want to be anything else. I don't want to be a character. I don't want to be a presenter. I don't want to be anything but a real person. And being a real person means you have to learn how to laugh at things. You have to learn how to enjoy life while you can. And he was one of the main inspirations for this show. When I first started this show, I thought, hey, maybe after a year, I could get on his show. How cool would that be, right? Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. You never know, but I don't know what was going to go on with the show, but he was in his 30s, man. And that's like, I was expecting, I'm, starting to listen to online podcasts, getting into local activism and organizing, meeting up with other people that are, anarchistic, like-minded, making a lot of new friends to learn a lot of things from. But I always looked up to Michael Brooks as like the original inspiration for me to find a format that I felt comfortable with to make political YouTube videos, because I had very, very, very big confidence issues throughout most of my life. And I decided in January of this year that even if I did have confidence issues, I was just going to try to fake it till I make it. And, again, I spent every single day watching the Majority Report. In the morning, I'd put on an archive of an episode I'd missed or something like that and listen to that while I drink coffee and maybe play around a Halo because the Master Chief Collection came out this year and that was a big time sink for me. And then that would prime my brain into okay, let's read the news. I would read the news and then I would make videos about them and again, I always thought that maybe if my show did really well, I could have him on my show, or vice versa, or that kind of stuff. I never really spoke to him personally. I spoke in the Discord, the TMBS Discord, frequently. It wasn't anything like this is a completely parasocial relationship. And as a streamer, as a content creator, I'm familiar with parasocial relationships. But one of the things that I thought was profound about Michael Brooks was that he was able to dismantle really stupid ideas, like the Sam Harris stuff that I had been entangled with as a teenager, with such brilliant ease. And he was able to do so in a very funny way. And one thing that I think was one of the biggest inspirations that I can take from Michael Brooks was spirituality, something that I gave up on when I was a kid. I gave up on any idea of anything but what's right in front of me. Whether it be religion, whether it be having a connection with anything but myself. I became kind of just, more interested in what's around me rather than what's inside of me. But over the last year, he would keep talking about spirituality. He would keep talking about how we need to be more in touch with our humanity. And I took that to heart. Over the last year, have become a lot more of a spiritual person. I've, thought a lot more about international global struggles and how they relate to my own. I've thought a lot more about all kinds of stuff that I would have probably never interacted with or been engaged with if not for Michael and the Majority Report crew. Because again, I had my politics influenced by my lived experience. Growing up poor, growing up in an abusive family, in a dysfunctional family, having no real friends, right? That was my lived experience. And I started to gain some sort of popularity, being like a Twitch streamer and a streamer and stuff. But I felt trapped in the sense that I couldn't be myself. I had to be a character. I had to be a version of me that appealed to the people that liked the games that I like. And we would just talk about video games, and I would just waste my life away. When I was young, my idea of life was as soon as, I get stuck, as soon as shit hits the fan, I was going to kill myself. Around the age of 14 to 15, I was convinced that at one point I was going to be homeless, and that when that point occurred, I would jump into traffic and kill myself. And over the course of the last 2 years, I have climbed out of that. I realized how important life is. And I've tried to kill myself several times. Luckily that didn't work out. But I realized that instead of wasting my life, I can spend the rest of my life trying to ensure that nobody else has to go through the things that I've gone through, the things that so many other people have gone through. And again, I was very depressed in 2018 and 2019. I was at the point where I would literally I couldn't get out of bed all day. I couldn't stand moving. I couldn't eat. I would drink alcohol every day. But one thing that was a comfort was watching the Majority Report and the Michael Brooks Show, and again, other podcasts here and there, but those two are my staples. Those I would watch every single episode of. And again, yesterday, hearing this news, I was devastated. And I felt like I wanted to make a video about honoring Michael, but I didn't know a way to do so without it being weird. And after watching today's Majority Report stream, where they basically had a bunch of people, memorialize him, I realized, you know what, I should do that too. I didn't know him. We only spoke a few times in like public chat rooms, but he was someone that was like so interactive, which is like something I also admired, is that he did have a huge platform, at least compared to mine. At least, in my eyes, he had a pretty fucking big platform. But instead of like just making the platform all about himself, he would make the platform about other people and about meeting new people, about talking to new people, about learning from people. And I took huge inspiration from that. Like I say, I try to reply to every comment I get. I try to reply to every email I get. I try to reply to every question I'm asked. I try to do this because I feel like if someone's out there and they resonate with my platform and my content, that I have an obligation to ensure that they are comfortable, that they can get through what hard times they may be going through. Because I know that when I was going through hard times, I didn't have much. And finding like a nice community, even though I didn't agree with these fellas on everything, like I said, I'm an anarchist. I have a lot less faith in institutions, in electoralism, in voting and all this stuff than a lot of the people that I admire, but that's okay. That's fine. But I want to make this show above it all. I wanted to make this to be a platform for real people, where real people can interact with fellow real people. And again, Michael was a huge inspiration for me. And so, again, I always thought, maybe, I'm being a little repetitive, but, bear with me, please. I thought that, again, maybe one day I can be like the people that introduced me to the political commenting sphere, that maybe I can be one amongst them. And, it was a long-term goal. It's like maybe a year, maybe 2 years. And it's like, I was content listening to people like Michael for the rest of my life. I presumed, like, why not? And so when the news hit me, it was just very, very devastating. And again, I don't know him personally. We've only spoken a few times, but just the idea that someone with such a big platform even spent a little bit of time on me makes me feel good. It makes me feel connected to a larger movement of people that went through the same things that I went through, with the same goal, the goal of to end poverty once and for all, because poverty is a choice. It is a decision made by the people that control our society. And if we get over our differences, all people that, aren't billionaires, if we get over our differences, there is nothing we cannot accomplish. And, again, I didn't have a script. I don't do scripts. I just like shooting from the hip, and maybe that's inappropriate. I don't know. But, I just wanted to say this guy was a huge influence. And it sucks that he's gone. And another thing is, from what I understand, he died from an unexpected blood clot in his neck. Something that, can happen if you're sedentary for a long time. I don't know all the details. I don't know. But I know that during this pandemic, and I had always planned on going to one of the live shows as soon as I had the money. It was one of my top priorities. If I ever have like $500 lying around, I want to buy a fucking ticket and a plane ticket to one of these live shows, because I would love to, meet everyone. Not just to meet Michael, but to meet all the people in that community, the people that I had made friends with. I had met up with people from the Discord, the TMBS Discord, and gone to public speaking events of stuff in DC when I lived there. And that, like, the idea of meeting people that were like-minded, people that believed in the same things, it was liberating for me. And again, like, when the pandemic started, it changed a lot of people's lives. I personally have been a very unhealthy person for a majority of my life. And when this pandemic started, I decided to get into shape. I've lost about 35 to 40 pounds since April. Like April 25th or something. I decided, I can't live the rest of my life. If I want to be an influence on others, I cannot live the rest of my life being unhealthy. So I decided to, get fit. I decided to I was always a very sedentary person. I decided not to be. I run, I jog, I work out, I exercise. I've been eating correctly. But I know not everyone has that possibility. I know a lot of people, especially Michael, I know he was doing a lot of work. He did so many different shows and he never let up. In fact, this guy would put out fucking videos like all day, every day, and it was just astounding. He would show up on like fucking 30 other shows. And so I don't know. I don't know what the causes are. It's hard to tell. But I just think about, like, what if, and this goes to every person that dies from something stupid. My mother had a stroke because she had a brain tumor that a doctor told me was there for 3 years. But we never had health insurance. We didn't know. We didn't know until she had a stroke and was taken to the hospital. We didn't know. And I think about that. That is a profound, life-altering experience. And I extrapolate that to this situation. What if we had an actual, proper medical system? What if this pandemic could have been over by now? This pandemic could have been solved. Things could be normal right now. But instead, especially in New York, there's chaos. Medical providers can't do anything except for COVID-related treatment and except for like life-threatening illnesses. People are getting a lot less healthy from sitting inside their homes all day. And I've seen this happen with a lot of other people. People talking about how they feel out of shape. They feel like, depression is a lot more of an issue with a lot of people. And I just wonder, if we lived in a better society, if Bernie won in 2016, where would we be right now? And you can't hitch your hopes onto one political candidate. But it's just thinking of all the people who will never live to see Donald Trump being defeated, and not only Donald Trump being defeated, but capitalism being defeated. It's just heartbreaking, especially for someone like Michael, because I looked up to him and he was so young. But yeah, I don't know. I'm going in circles here, but I just wanted to make a video because he was a main inspiration for this show and for me. And he helped me get out of some of my most depressive times. And I wish I got the chance to tell him that. Thank you for watching.